Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins. Here we are in August. Amazing, we made it this far. There was a time when I'd look back or look forward into time and didn't know if it was going to exist at all, but we keep on being here somehow. And today I have a great pleasure to host Lindsey Scharmyn of Rogue Ways, roguesoul.org. She's going to be coming on in just a minute. And I just want to let you guys know that if you're new to the channel, this is a place I host people who don't mind saying things that might not go over that well. And they are truth tellers, truth lovers. That word is so badly abused now, it's hard to even use it. Freedom, same way they ruined all of that. But I'm a fan of reclaiming the words, and I know Lindsey as well. We're going to be talking about some special words like swearing. In fact, that was what inspired me to have you on, and the Sanskrit language, because I have my own history with that, the world of cymatics and waveform phenomena, as I was saying. And so we are live on Facebook, on YouTube, on X. I just got Rumble going and Vigilante TV. After these streams, they go up on my podcast channels, so Spotify and iTunes and all of those. So if you prefer to download an audio, then that's always available after the fact. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring Lindsey on. Hello and welcome, Lindsey.
Hi, Beth. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, I've really enjoyed tuning in with your streams, and you have a few different combinations going on. I noticed that you and Charlie are teaming up for some of your newscasts, and it's actually really fun to get news from your channel. I don't like to get news from nearly anywhere, and a lot of it is doom porn, and I just I'd actually rather not know. Certainly not going to go the mainstream media side of things. So yeah, your podcasts have been really great.
Oh, that's so great to hear. I'm glad. Yeah, I've been doing the Day Zero with Charlie, X Cubed, Corey for about 4 years now, and that's much more of the doom porn sort of angle, I would say, actually. But it's also hilarious, and we get the different inputs and everything. And my own winning report I do on Rogue Soul or Rogue Ways show and podcast is much more of the enlightened, I'll say, view or lighter view of reality and what's going on. And I actually hear this from a lot of people that say, I don't really want to tune into the news, but I do kind of want to know what's going on. And so your show is perfect because I get to know what's going on and also not get overwhelmed by it or feel subdued by it, right? Suppressed by it. So it's my honor to bring that to people as one of my shows I do every week.
Fantastic. That's really great. Yeah, it's interesting. Yesterday I went to my Facebook and I got a slap on the wrist or whatever. They didn't seem to stop me from doing anything, but I got these community alerts. They removed 7 photos from an Acapulco this year. And they were literally just photos of people sitting around a table or having a meal or something like that. And they said that it was misleading links. And there were actually no links. I know for a fact there was 0 links in those because it's literally just vacation photos coming up. And so that's the first time I've really been on their radar. It wasn't a poster of like, the virus is fake and gay or anything like that. So somehow I'm suddenly on their radar. I know I was shadow banned there, but I'd never been hit, so to speak. Where do you mostly spend your time on social media? And I'm going to introduce you after that.
Oh man, I mean, I don't like to spend any time on it. So really what I do is I check it to just see if anyone needs me or, I'm being tagged in some way or something. But mostly I just try to post some of my most favorite spiritual moments I've had recently or uplifting ideas or, things that are good that are happening in the world. And so I do that pretty equally on Telegram, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. That's about it. My YouTube channel's been deleted like 4 times. I barely put anything there, so it's pretty much the show. It's people who really try to keep in connection with me that get to, because I, like you and many others, have been shadow banned and suppressed on every platform since the beginning. It's funny too. People say, oh, Rumble's great. Go to Rumble. Rumble suppresses me worse than YouTube ever did.
It does.
Yeah, they've deleted my channels. They don't say, oh, you did this wrong or we don't like this, now we're deleting your channel. They just delete it. And then when I contact them, they're like, you never had a channel. And I'm like, okay, gaslighters. I mean, I don't know how intentional it is, or if there's something else that does it and they genuinely don't know what's going on. It could be that, right? I have no hate in my heart for Rumble in general, but it's definitely not the place where we can be free, which I think people think it is. So the only place that never suppressed me was Rockfin, and they went, by the wayside, and they're gone now. So that was pretty sad to lose that access point, being the only one where people could actually genuinely find me, not lose me, not get unsubscribed from me, not get disappeared from me. So yeah, it's a long answer.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Rockfin was a good place, and I spent a lot of years promoting them and promoting my streams there. And then all of a sudden I got a letter saying, we're canceling your ability to upload or live stream because you didn't spend any money here. And it's like, fascinating. And are they gone now? They're
there. Okay. And it makes sense to me. I mean, they have to pay an exorbitant amount for hosting everything, for live streaming everything, for having all of the hardware to do that, all of the space to do that. And so they got rid of anyone who wasn't bringing in money for them, because it's not helping them pay literally the brick and mortar rent. So I understood for 100% of their reasoning and who they got rid of and why, and who they kept were the people who bring in money, which was MMA, which was actually how they started. They were an MMA streaming platform, and then they decided to branch out and see if it would help them, and help others to support other content. But I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of people who are sort of in the alternative and conspiracy and, like you were saying, truth and freedom and all these words that don't really mean anything, the people who are in those communities are quite often not spending money. Right? And it's unfortunate, in my opinion, that many people don't have the value system in mind that would support people who are doing this for them, even if they love the person, they love the show. And I don't even blame them, honestly, because we live in a society that has encouraged the model of you get everything for free and you're entitled to it. So you should just take it, in fact, if someone's trying to charge you for it, because you deserve that. And so it's not even really their fault, right? They've been sort of conditioned. We've all been sort of conditioned to just expect content. So they're kind of like, oh man, I can't afford, this and that and that. It's like, well, maybe you can or can't. That's really about you and how you assess your reality and your abundance and your value system. But does the person who you love and get all this content from deserve it? And do you actually have it to share? So it's an interesting thing. MMA audiences, they love to spend money, apparently. Right?
What's the MMA?
Mixed martial arts.
Oh, okay. Real niche. Yeah, got it. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think you and I might share this, that I'd never charge for my streams. And it's because I am a full-time coach on the other side and coach trainer. And so that's how I earn my living and have the ability to do this kind of thing at no charge. And it's part of the way that I expand my community and get to know people and build relationships over time that sometimes do result in them coming to me if they resonate with the work and that kind of thing. So I've always had that so-called luxury. I could also, do paid behind paywall kind of stuff. I do have the House of Free Will, but that's not a moneymaker. That's like $3 a month donation. So it keeps the platform up and keeps me going. And again, building relationships generally is the most important thing. And we all make, in a slave society, we need to make a living. That's just a fact, how it goes. Yeah, I was just going to say quickly, it's when you see the podcasters that's their only form of income, it's so precarious. And because it's not really their, their skills, their learning, their expertise, although there can be that goes into the content, of course. And that's, I think you're a good example of that. But they're just on such shaky ground, because if the big platform that's paying the bills that month is done for one reason or another, which we know can happen, then they don't have a lot to fall back on of anything.
Yeah, and to be honest, even the best person with the best intentions and motivations will become at least slightly dishonest, because it isn't actually authentic to be catering to money, right? An example of this is people will notice very quickly. I've noticed it. And again, my podcast doesn't actually make money. I don't have it behind a paywall, but I do the winning report, which we talked about as news, but it has this angle, it's positive. And then I do my other content, which is almost always spiritual in nature. It often has, meditations or techniques or something or else, or like, universal mysteries and this sort of stuff. little bit, I'm going to say higher level. It's not for everybody. It takes a very specific interest level and experience set to want to get engaged with that. And it gets, I want to say 30%, let's say, of the views that my news show gets, right? It's also true if I do something that is more on the sort of doom porn side of things, not because I'm trying to be doom porn, but because this just happened. Let's look into it. Let's see, for example, if a false flag occurs or something like that, that gets much higher engagement than my other content. So someone who is doing a paid model will notice that, and then will gear themselves more towards that, even if it's just like naturally, like they're just like, okay, this is what people want from me. But is it actually the totality of your message or your experience? And it's not. So it's unfortunate that there's people who don't just get what they, I think, deserve, or the value that they're putting out is coming back at them, because it is going to make things much more like the traditional media, which is based on our engagement. It's based on our emotional reaction. It's based on, right, what we'll get addicted to, based on our lowest aspect of our ego, because it's the easiest and the simplest. So it's unfortunate, and I've seen it happen to so many people. So yeah, I'm very lucky, like you, that I have started this when I had full-time, full employment, full abundance. And even when I left that and started my own business and what I do now and the services I offer people, that worked out well enough that I didn't even have to think about whether or not my show could bring in money. It's always just been a thing I do because I love it.
Right, exactly. And I just want to reiterate what you're talking about, the addiction of fear. And if you're not spreading that, then it is a narrower path and a narrower audience, because you can see the channels that get people just flood to them. They are junking out on that stuff like it's heroin. I did a deep dive in the archetypes of controlled op a few years ago to demonstrate how that happens. That they might be knowingly controlled, or they might just be glomming onto that trend of spreading fear, and themselves be addicted to it as well.
Yeah, well, they get attention, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you haven't purified your own ego, and you're moving into these, you're going to face whatever it is that's still unhealed within you. It's what you're going to create, whether you like it or not. So again, people with the best intentions, high intelligence, all of this, they're often going to go that route because that's what they've got inside of them.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to know the difference between a fix and actually getting something of substance. I started to notice that. I don't know if this was like you at all. I'll start asking you questions soon about it. But when I first started waking up, whatever that means, and pulling the veil back, I tuned into a couple of channels that were just pure fear, and I'd come away from it like go doing this and having a bad nervous system or a bad sleep or something, and it was pretty quick to go, oh, okay, that's probably not the best for me, even if it's true. And then now, years later, seeing how much of that stuff is actually crap anyway.
Yeah. Well, I was perhaps lucky. I sort of came to before the internet even existed. And so I had the sort of fear addiction still, but it was in a very different way because there weren't a lot of sources to get it from. So just like a lot of people who are unhealed or, working through some of this, you still are projecting it everywhere you are. So I was still the victim, and I was still, they're out to get us, and all these all-powerful forces, I can do nothing about it. And when the internet did come about, well, then I was like, we still didn't have channels and podcasts and all this stuff, but we had websites that were super doom porn. And one of the things I was addicted to, every morning I would wake up and I would go to this site that had the whole planet, and it had all of the like emergencies, crises, earthquakes, floods, like weird natural phenomenon, and all of this stuff. It was all negative. And every day I was like, see, the world's ending, where it's all coming to an end. I spent my whole teenage and young adult life sure that like there was no way we were going to make it much further. And now it's been 20 some years since then. And I'm like, this is actually just the human condition. Like, this is really just, what are you projecting? What's inside of you? What do you have left unhealed? It's all about you. It's all inside of you. It has nothing to do with what's out here at all. So it was a really good learning process to go through that.
Very good. Very good. So for those of you that don't know Lindsey already, I'm going to just say a little bit about her. We go back pre-pandemic, actually, which is more rare for my world, which is fun. You had me on your show. Did you remember? Was it 2018 or 19, something like that?
It's way back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. So that was fun just to, I'm looking forward to catching up. And so Linsey is a transformational spiritual teacher and channel with a decades-long record of guiding people into soul-centered, joyful, and fulfilling lives through deep spiritual mentorship, channeling of higher selves and divine guides, past life readings, karmic integration, sound and energy healing, blessings, and sacred retreats. She helps people awaken to their true essence, activate their spiritual gifts, and embody their soul's purpose. An author, host, healer, channeler, teacher, and spiritual guide, her work gently bridges the mystical and the grounded, blending ancient wisdom with practical healing tools. She's worked with individuals and groups around the world, creating lasting inner transformation through her unique gift of intuitive insight, sacred presence, and compassionate guidance. Again, you can find her at roguesoul.org, as it is on the screen and also in the notes below. So come and say hello in the chat if you're there watching. Hello to Daniel. Nice to see you. I always have a intention to connect with you. You know that invitation is always open. All right, so let's jump in. And since you said this already, that you were it was like even pre-internet when you got into this stuff. What was the foray into that?
I believe, I mean, I was born this way. So I came in sort of questioning everything. I also had parents who, in their own ways, supported my ability to question everything and to have my own, so I'm going to say sovereignty, although these weren't like the words we were using or what I was aware of consciously, really. But I just remember even really early on looking at adults and being like, you don't get it? Like, I'm like 5 years old and I'm like, you don't see or you don't understand, like, what's wrong with you? Actually, I just kind of realized very early, like, oh, everyone's sick or asleep or something's wrong, like something's not right. I also had a lot of trauma in childhood, and that will often wake people up because you see darkness and deep evil really clearly, really early. And so that's hard to miss. You can either go deeper into delusion with it or you can wake up. And so, it woke me up more than anything else. My father was in Vietnam. He saw all of the horror that went on. He saw the lies. He saw the way the system is used against people. He was actually in Cambodia when that was not officially ever what happened, right? So we know that there was sort of secret ops in Cambodia. He was there, so he knew that. So he saw through, and he would literally just tell us, like, you don't ever trust the government. The government is not here to support you. It's not here to help you. They're here to control you and to lie to you. And it wasn't a fearful thing. I didn't feel afraid of it. It was just clear to me that politicians weren't our friends and that the government wasn't here to make life better. I also was encouraged to not necessarily just believe everything teachers said. So not because they were like, don't trust teachers, but they were just like, I don't know, what do you think? Right? Because I'd like ask questions and I'd be like, well, what about this? This doesn't make sense to me, but that's what the teacher said. They'd be like, well, what do you think? What else could it be? Right. And so I had this permission to sort of imagine, like, oh, the teacher might not always know, and I'm allowed to consider anything as an option. And I'm also allowed to choose for myself. I was encouraged, if I didn't want to not say the flag salute. I did keep saying it, but they were very clear, like, I don't have to do anything that a teacher tells me to. And, again, they weren't just like rebellious people. This was just the way. My mother was very thoughtful, open-minded, and liked questioning. And my father was very aware that the government wasn't there to help us. So we also would always have this thing. I don't know if some people have this in their household, where we would make fun of commercials. And the way we made fun of them was by mocking their premise that was implied but not stated. Right? Like, you're ugly if you don't use Noxzema, right? You're gonna fail at life. You won't get a boyfriend if you don't do this. So I was being taught with this implicit message that the media and these, commercials are also lying to you. And it's laughable, actually, that they think they could convince you of these things so that you'll give them money. And all of this stuff is stuff you don't need. I was also really very, very poor. We were homeless sometimes. We just didn't have food all the time or other things all the time. So I also understood pretty early that material reality was just like what you make of it. I had a blast anyways. I was climbing trees. I was running around. I was having fun. It didn't matter that I didn't have a mansion, and it mattered that I didn't have food sometimes. It didn't matter, these other things. So I just had this inherent lack of materialism. So I just had all of these sort of skills and things that I was layered in with my upbringing in my early childhood that I just was always a questioner of authority, a questioner of the media, a questioner of everything, empowered to decide for myself what my experience was or what I thought the truth was. And those are incredible gifts. I'm so grateful that I chose these parents in order to get those gifts from, despite all the hardships they came with as well. So that was most of it. So I just continued that way. I was also quite precocious. I've always been of high intelligence. I think that helps a lot to see patterns and to see through deceptions. So the majority of what I've been seeing through beyond all of that in this life is the emotional and mental programming that we are receiving through, intergenerational wounds and ancestral wounds, and also just culture. No matter where you decide to fit into it, all of it is layered in with these codependent behaviors, codependent relationships, and delusional relationships and information. So that's been the bulk of it. And that's actually what I mostly do with my show and with people, is work through those aspects, because they're actually the most important. It doesn't matter what a government's doing or what a media is doing or what anything's doing if you can't be healthy in yourself, and if you can't see through, these interpersonal and intrapersonal aspects of self.
Right. Oh, yeah. Let's take a little bit of time to talk about that. There's some, I don't know, narrative, whatever, popular thing going around. I don't need to maybe name names about it, but trauma doesn't cause disease. There's no proof for that. There's no, and everything that you're describing, not necessarily the cause of disease, but the cause of something, right? Like it's not exactly going to be swept under the rug. That to me is the problem, that we had so many injured people, maybe more ancestrally, where there was zero context for any kind of self-healing or personal development, or stop, drop, and look at what is creating this circumstance. So many of them came from, whether it was war-torn countries or fleeing for their life across the sea, and it was just that wasn't a thing. So I consider us to be more or less first generation healing, and so it's very interesting. I have somebody specific in mind. I know you know them. I'm not that into naming names, but somebody that was extremely damaged, and by their own admission. Exactly. I was going to say profession. And they had genius level intellect going on, extremely smart, could put information together, very good at putting patterns together that, might take me a great deal longer than they would have. And so there was the signs of a gift there, but having been most healed, and again by their admission that they couldn't heal, that was the paradigm, that healing was not even possible. If a tree gets hit by lightning and it splits, it's split. There's no putting the tree back together. And that person became in some ways dangerous.
Yeah.
And became an attacker, became a kind of predator, and not just on me. And I think from the little I gathered on you as well and other people, it got continuously thrown under the bus and lied about and all of this kind of thing. So, the trauma does bring the great gift of impotential, but it's not the thing. Do you want to talk about that at all, since you're nodding your head?
Yeah. No, this archetype is also very familiar to me. And again, talking about having seen the evil really early, this is actually one of my greatest skills, is I'm like relatively way ahead of the crowd and saying, that person's a narcissist, watch out for them. And everyone's like, you're crazy, you're the narcissist, you're an asshole. And I'm like, I mean, that's fine. But if you need me, I'm over here. But this is a common thing. And like I said, when you hit trauma, you hit darkness, you hit evil, you can go deeper into delusion, or you can go into healing. You have to do one of the two, because you can't stay where you're at the same, because you're experiencing this thing that is so damaging to you. You either have to double down and disconnect from it, and that's the delusion aspect, or you have to go into like, all right, well, I'm here anyway, so what are we going to do with all this, right?
Yeah.
And so it's most dangerous the people who are deeply traumatized and unable or unwilling to see it or to heal it. And those people are almost always dysfunctional in some way. They're almost always on the cluster B or narcissistic side of things. And sometimes they're cluster A and cluster C, Those are less damaging to other people, though, because they're very internalized and they're not, so for people who don't know, clusters A and C has to do with being schizoid. If you're cluster A, kind of schizoid, kind of seeing things, seeing patterns, and imagining things, and maybe getting a little too deep into that intelligence. And then cluster C is like antisocial, like disconnect, avoid, like go into yourself. They can both damage other people. They're just much less so. Cluster B are really, really controlling. They want to control how people see them. They want to control how people see other people. They want to control what people feel. They want to control what people think. They want to control what people do. And at the root of that is actually this deep, deep insecurity, this terror, in fact, that they're not going to be okay. And maybe no one's going to be okay. And everyone's probably going to hurt them in some way if they don't control everything and everyone does exactly what they say and want. And in the lighter forms of this, it doesn't always look a lot like that. It's like harder to see the manipulation and the, all of this sort of stuff. It can take a little while because it's a little bit more subtle. But when you get into like full-blown narcissism, it is kind of obvious somewhat early if you know what to look for. Mm-hmm. Right. And so some people say to me like, Lindsey, you're really harsh and you judge people. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to. I'm very happy to. Because I know exactly what I'm looking for, and I know exactly what isn't work withable and what is, and I know what I want in my life. And, when I encounter a narcissist, like, it's not my job to heal them. By the way, you can't. So it doesn't matter anyway. And I know for sure they're going to harm me in my life. So goodbye. Right. And I have this real easy way of just cutting people off forever once I see that in them. And people think that's harsh, but I would invite them to like research it and look, because even in a psychiatric, right, and like the history of discovering these types of people, there is no cure and there is no going back. So again, the lightest form of cluster B does have potential to come back out of it in this lifetime. Anyone beyond borderline personality disorder is what they call it. Anyone beyond that, which was you get into narcissism and then sociopathy and then psychopathy, they're lost causes. There is literally no coming back. No one has ever documented narcissism turning around. It hides itself. It mimics non-narcissism sometimes, and then it comes back because it can't go away because that person is stuck so deeply in this. Next lifetime, maybe, not this lifetime.
So then in a way you would agree with that person that said it was impossible for them to heal.
If they know they're a narcissist, then yeah, they're right.
I'm sure they wouldn't have defined themselves that way, but it just in terms of being sure that the healing couldn't happen.
It could happen, but it's not going to happen in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
We've never seen it happen once in the history of humans that we know of. So
right.
could it? Sure, technically.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to say there's like never in the next 10 billion years going to happen, but as things are right now, as they have been in all of documentable reality, that has never happened once.
Right. The difference between possibility and probability.
Yes.
Would apply there. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And they can learn to do their best to temper it, but it's quite unlikely because their whole thing is they know that they know what other people need to be thinking, seeing, doing, saying, not them. They don't need to change, actually. The whole rest of the world does. So it's not likely that they're going to say, okay, how can I stop harming people, stop harming myself, be a better friend, be a better partner. They're not going to see it that way. That is the essence of narcissism. It's also hard. People think narcissism means you like the way you look or you're vain. And it's so different from that. So it's hard when people aren't sure what narcissism is.
Yeah, and I think it's on very much on a scale, because I know some beautiful people, I call them friends. I genuinely love them. And then, there's certain things that come up and is like, oh, you're a Karen. Ah, okay. All right. And, getting judged where you thought, oh, isn't it not out of fashion to judge? But, you come to a point where you realize, oh, the judgment actually doesn't help the other person for sure. And it's not helping me. And it's just creating separation and division. And then there was this like, oh yes, I said, oh, you're judging me. She's like, yes, I'm judging you, like this. And I'm like, oh, fancy. Okay. I don't really have any connections like that anymore, but good to know. So, the love's still there. Um, well, I'm sure we'll get past it, but I think the thing that would really catch me every time, because I'm a fan of intelligence. I love that. I can be as equally attracted to someone for their genius as for any other attribute or quality. And the genius and the trauma and the woundings go hand in hand.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're often just right in the same package.
Yeah.
It is more rare to find genius in a healed package than maybe any other combination in humanity, right?
Yeah, exactly. Uh, what if it is a son? I'm not sure what your question is.
Oh,
Welcome.
what if you have a narcissist as a son?
Oh, what if it's your son?
Yeah.
Got it. Got
I've
it.
worked with people who have narcissists that you can't abandon, essentially. It's your sacred duty to raise this person, to love this person. The best thing you can actually do is to learn about cluster B and narcissists and learn how to have unbreakable boundaries and also unbreakable love. And as a teacher, this is something that I have had to do. I think Beth is probably nodding because you probably have a similar approach to people in your work, right? Sometimes you are working with people who want to hurt you, or they're in negative patterns and they're projecting them onto you, or whatever it is. And so you have to be really firm and still love them. So you say, like, no, there's no reality where you get to do A, B, and C. And I love you. I'm happy to help you in some way if I can. And it's not going to look like this. That's not love, right? You don't get to treat me like this. And honestly, there's a lot of cases where once everybody's an adult, you might sort of close down a lot of pathways with somebody who will not stop hurting you, right? And that's really hard. This is the hardest situation as a mother, to have a child that is a narcissist. And I have a lot of compassion for that.
Yeah,
So,
me too. Yeah. Our hearts go out. It is different. It's easy to break up with a boyfriend or a husband, or leave a boss, leave a job, all of those kind of things. But when it's your child or your parent, there's a different kind of a contract going on there. And these kind of things that push you to the edge are, nobody wants them. No one's going to invite that into their life, but they have the potential for the greatest freedom of all, because you have that investment and you won't give up and think, oh, it's just their problem. You'll do the work, like you were already saying, Lindsey, to find the whole thing inside yourself. To me, that's really the only thing that you can do, especially when it's a child. If they're still a child, maybe they're an adult, is to find it inside yourself. I also just wanted to say, since you also are in the world of programming, that to me, that's done by desperate measures. It's when, usually I would say, the infant, probably from birth or before birth even, because so much happens in the womb as well. And when all is lost, according to that being, that there's only one answer, is to program and to then spend the rest of the life potentially uninterrupted in that state of programming that is all about the self-protection and the constant threat of ultimately death always there. And so yeah, that to me is the seed of all of that. I don't know if you want to share anything more about it.
Yeah, and in my work, well, there is past lifetimes and there's also ancestral stuff, and so it is something that people come in with. So I often encourage parents who have kids who are expressing things like narcissism or other pathologies, that you don't take it upon yourself and say, oh, I did this, or I failed in some way, or how did this come? I thought I did all the right things. It's not your fault. It can be that there's severe trauma that happens in childhood that causes sort of narcissistic and cluster B types of energy, and the traditional way of looking at it is that that's exactly what it is. But I've definitely seen past lives, we're coming in with this stuff. And so, if you don't believe in that, that's fine with me, but that's what I see in my work. And so it's nobody's fault. It's really true that it's nobody's fault. It's not something that you did. It's something that their soul is doing and that they need to be experiencing for whatever reason that we don't need to even worry about understanding unless we really deeply want to. And that's our life's calling. And so to forgive yourself and them, I think, is a huge part of the process too. And again, sometimes when it's the other way around, it's a child and their parent is the narcissist, it's totally okay to stop connecting with them at all, right? Like, I just want to encourage people to do what is good for you. You are not required to take care of somebody. And that's actually true of everybody. And once you've given a child life and the sustenance that they need and the foundation they need to become an adult, that's also true. Whether or not you can do it is not in your heart, or it's not something you believe in, that's a totally different question. You're allowed to do whatever you want to do. But if what that means is, we don't have contact anymore, that's okay. There's really dangerous situations that happen when we commit to being connected to someone, no matter how they treat us, including murder and death. So I'm not saying cluster B people or narcissists are going to murder you. You shouldn't be afraid of that, but they can. And the people who do the most murdering tend to be, if not pathologically cluster B, in a cluster B time or a period of their life. So it's something to think about, like what is worth it and what is not. Your own safety is paramount. And it's true, the safety of your heart and your soul as well. So, I think we get stuck, and that's the codependency that I'm often trying to bring attention to too, is we get stuck in this idea that we somehow owe other souls something, and we don't. My heart is to help as many people as possible. My soul wants to serve as many people as possible. And I know that I get to serve and heal more people when I maintain the best boundaries for myself and, protect myself in the most authentic and genuine ways possible. So, yeah, narcissism and cluster B have become quite the problem in our society too. If you could put our entire society into a pathology, it would be cluster B. Like, we live in a cluster B society. And so if you look around at who's promoted, who gets the attention, who is empowered by the law, even, it's cluster B people, right? Do you see who is controlling culture? It's cluster B people. And if you even look at what people are more familiar with is the victim mentality, that's a cluster B mentality. So you might not be cluster B and have that, because we might all be somewhat influenced by this cluster B society that encourages codependency. It encourages you to say, oh, I should always give. And, if you need to hurt me, that's okay. You need it. You're hurt, right? Like, oh, you should get everything from me and I get nothing. It encourages that because that's easy to prey upon, right? It's the easiest for a narcissist to find a codependent person who wants to give too much and not take for themselves and not have boundaries. And it's the best for society. It's the best for a government. It's the best for somebody who's trying to amass wealth or power. I mean, those are cluster B narcissistic tendencies, and this is a cluster B narcissistic society, and most people are codependent and suffering with the victim mentality.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I want to just emphasize two things about that I believe you're saying anyway, and I like to repeat this, that there's a huge difference between blame and responsibility. And most people take on responsibility as an accounting game, a sorting game. What's your shit and what's mine? And then when they figure out what's not theirs, they leave that. So there's a third possibility, much more powerful, much more in keeping with. I'm going to ask you about your archetype, by the way, in this case with the king archetype. And they have the ability to take radical responsibility. That means not just for yourself, but for the other person. And to me, this is holding the greatest capacity for healing of anything. And it means that you stop working on them, whoever they are, if it's your son or somebody close in your life or even remote in your life that you could separate more easily from. But to sit and say, like, I did it. Start with that premise and that reality, because it actually is true. We do create the world around us. How we experience things is not a mistake. And to me, that's the basis for it. That's where all the power is. Like you were talking about the victim. I haven't subscribed to the labels at all. And it's interesting. Emil was saying how, it's trending to talk about narcissism. I almost bypassed the conversation, to tell you the truth, just because I'm not on that trend, and I'm just kind of rejecting the trend out of my own rebellious ways. But yeah, and I think that's being abused too, because as soon as you just say the word and then you water down the word, or you overuse the word and use it to say, oh, now I understand that person. I have a label for them, and I can have all the vitriol and the anger and the judgment. But I never will even consider the possibility that I could do any work here.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a thing narcissists do that's called the narcissistic reversal, which is when they blame everyone else for doing exactly what they're doing. So we see the government do this, and we see media do this, and we see, right? So you can, once you start looking into it, you can see narcissistic reversal everywhere you go. The trending aspect of this narcissism conversation is actually that it's people who are not narcissists by pathology, but have adopted the cluster B, the victim mentality, the narcissist sort of mindset and culture. And so we have all of us have aspects of it, right? Unless we've worked really hard to purify that from ourselves. That's a different story, and it's very rare. And so we all have aspects of that. And so we're all then doing that. Like, oh, well, you're the narcissist, or you're doing, and look at what you did, and look at you. Like it is helpful in the sense that you do need to identify patterns, and you do need to identify your relationships with people, what they consist of. But if you're not taking the next step of, okay, so what do I do? What's my role in this? Well, there is no narcissistic relationship with a person who isn't codependent. 100%. Sorry if people don't want labels for themselves or whatever, but you are being codependent when you are in a narcissistic relationship. So you chose that and created it for yourself, and probably on the soul level, to identify the part of you that doesn't honor yourself, doesn't love yourself enough to say, no, you don't get to label me Karen, or whatever it is. And actually, this is where I have a line, right, that you can't cross. And if you insist on crossing it, we will interact, and that's cool. I'm taking responsibility for myself to say, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go do something else because this doesn't serve me anymore, right? Or if I really want to, I'll work through it with you, but, that's your choice too. So, like, you take radical responsibility for yourself. One of the cluster B people in my life who's pathologically so, at some point I was just like, oh man, like, how do I love them. I want to keep them in my life, actually. How do I actually have like these boundaries and also connect, but also protect myself, but also it's very, very complicated if you're going to try to do this. But I just found ways like, okay, when I visit, I'm never, ever going to stay at your house. I'm always going to have my own Airbnb, hotel, whatever, so that I can leave at any time and just be like, okay, bye, see you later. Not, I'm mad at you, or don't do this, or just, yeah, you're in whatever that I'm not down with, and I'm going to go over here. I take care of myself in this way. And I just have 100% of the time this ability to take care of myself. And if I don't have that, it will be bad for me. And I know that. So I take the responsibility to do that. So it really does always come back to you. And, labels are 100% of the world. It's every word we use is labeling something. And we do that so that we can understand ourselves and our experience in reality better. If you get so attached to the label that you then say this is forever and it can never change, this is a danger for you. Now you're getting stuck in a, dogma, right? But if you're just saying, I'm using this as a tool right now to understand, I don't have any judgment in narcissism, really. I just know what it is, and I know what I need in regards to it, right? I don't say you're a horrible person because you're a narcissist. I say you're a person I don't want to spend time with at all. That's all. That's what I do for me, right?
Yeah, exactly. And as long as we're using the labels right now, which are just the symbols that enable communication or make communication possible, that you actually can't have the narcissist without the codependent. Yes. That's the part that people don't understand. They would literally not exist. They would have no platform. Yes. There would be no dynamics with which they could continue like that. So it's, that's what, another word for codependent might be empath. Right, all that empathic movement, and all they're describing is codependent behavior. No, I'm sorry, like it's just you're not special. You're just codependent,
right?
Like to some degree or another.
Just traumatized and overly sensitive.
Right, right, exactly. Here in Ireland, the rulers are narcissistic. Yep, and hello, Polly Vegas. Nice to see you. Leaders kind of have to be psychos. Kind of interesting to talk about that possibility. I would say, I'll turn it to you in a second, Lindsey, about that leaders often have just great big fat egos, and I would say they kind of need to. There's something, or at least that's a necessary phase in the evolution of leadership. Hopefully they don't hold on to that and continue to have it all referring to them with no contact with the source, or no awareness of the source or counsel from a higher power, so to speak. So I don't know if they have to be psychos, but the shadow of the king is the tyrant. So it's built in. You're going to be dancing with the devil, and that addiction to power.
Well, and we have this society, the way that we are all in society right now is, like I said, exceptionally codependent, just in this idea that we even need a leader. And so if you need a leader, if you need someone to make the decisions for you and do the things for you and tell you what to do and tell you how to think and where to be, that's fine. But by nature, then they're going to be on the narcissistic or psychopathic shade of things, like you're talking about, like one creates the other. The type of leader we all say we want, but we don't actually, or we would have created it by now. But the one we say we want, or we would have healed ourselves enough to have it by now. This leader we say we want is the one that's more like Christ-like, right? Or like, everybody, I just love everyone. I'll help everyone. I'm selfless. Like, what do you need? And it doesn't matter. We're all going to do this together and all of that. Well, that leader would exist in a purely anarchical society, in which was only possible if 100% of people are taking 100% responsibility for themselves. I don't know about you. I've met like 4 people out of millions in my life that take 100% responsibility for themselves. It's a radical choice, and it's very different from what we see humans doing or have seen humans do. And so if we're choosing that, we're healing a lot and purifying a lot for our ancestors, our past lives, our future lives, and all of this. It's a huge shift from codependency, psychopathy, and narcissism to anarchical. Everyone's equal, actually, which means everyone's taking responsibility for themselves, actually. We don't even know what it looks like. we can't even like imagine it. We think it means things it doesn't even mean at all. And so it's a huge, chasm between us and this state that we say we want. And I think we do, but we have to get down to like brass tacks of like, what does that actually mean? It means this, right? And like you were saying earlier, which is a practice I have too, where no matter what I'm experiencing or who I'm seeing or who I'm experiencing, I'm saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, right? That person there that I'm judging, like I'm judging me, right? I'm saying like, that's me doing that. Why am I doing it that way? What can we do different? What can I do differently, right? Even if it's not me. And this is also part of radical responsibility. So even the narcissist, I have to say, I'm doing that. Why am I doing that? Right? Why am I being like this? What is it I'm trying to heal or get over? But yeah, that duality is going to play a part. And so in order to get the better leader, we have to be the better self.
Yeah, exactly. I think leadership is natural because I've seen it happen in the wild. I would say with nieces and nephews, where nobody told them to lead each other in certain ways. And why does the 2-year-old ends up being the leader of the 6-month-old baby, and the 10-year-old is the leader of the 4-year-old, and it's like somehow organically, naturally, just plays out that way, that we all have some way that we can lead others. And there might be other ways that we totally couldn't do that. And so, yeah, there's something natural there, but of course it's out of context. And were we ever meant to live in group sizes that commanded that need for the, rulership? And I mean, it's so twisted, and the inheritance of this level of slavery, which some people would totally argue doesn't even actually exist, in say on paper, in the legal world. But when you look at the reality of it, the government sends you a bill, and if you don't pay it, you go to jail. I mean, that sounds like slavery to me. Yeah. Pretty basic. You don't get to live if you don't have money. Sounds like slavery to me.
Yeah. So, well, what did Alan Watts say? The government are just the criminals who got away with it. Right? The criminals who are in jail are the ones who didn't get away with it, and the ones who got away with it are our leaders. So there's a difference we can see automatically between leadership and power. And we confuse the words and we use them interchangeably, but there is a difference between the powerful, who we call our leaders, who are actually just criminals who are controlling everyone and everything, and just leadership. And it's often said, like, the best leader, you won't even notice them at all. Your life will just change, and you will grow and become a different person, or the group will just be functional in a new way. And you won't necessarily say that person's the leader of this group, but they empowered everybody to have this sort of alchemy, right? That encouraged this growth and transformation. So, best or whatever, but it's just like you're saying, this is a natural thing people do, and it's not necessarily a position you hold or power that you have. It's something that just happens. Nature does.
Yeah, the best leaders are those that don't want to be. the unlikely leaders that just end up in that situation because someone is there's a vacuum and they have an ability to play a role. I wanted to shout out to what is her name? I won't remember it offhand, but in Canada, we have had our libraries flooded with porn for the children, especially in schools. And so there's been quite a good contingent here in Manitoba. And I've interviewed, darn, her name isn't on the top of my head, Christine something. And so they've really went for it. And, you know, it was the planted flag hill to die on. And now one of them is getting sued for defamation. All she's trying to do is protect children from seeing the really wrongs. And no doubt about it, there's no gray area going on there at all. It's sickening, literally makes you want to barf. And now they're suing her. So it's, please say a prayer. What the heck is her name? Maybe someone can remind me from the King Hero chat if you're out there. And shout out to Steve Mercer, by the way. I just found out that I don't know, do you know Steve Mercer? You do? Yeah. Both his parents passed.
Oh, Steve.
I just saw that. I know. Yeah. And I so if you're hearing this, then we're sending you a lot of love.
Love you, Steve.
Yeah.
He's the greatest.
He really is amazing. Yeah, exactly. So good to be choosy about the company you keep. That's you can call yourself a snob and there can be a different place you come from than judgment. It's not like, oh, I judge you, you've got these bad qualities, therefore I don't want to be around you. That's very low level. Mm-hmm. That's not it. And half the time you don't even have to actively choose it. If you stay in integrity with yourself and you have good boundaries, they will probably choose not to be around you. Right?
It's often the case. It's not always, though, because there are predators, right? And some of the predators are in very nefarious ways. I just always ask myself, too, like, what do we mean by judgment? Because it's actually totally okay to judge. And we're doing it 100% of the time, whether we like it or not, because that's what our brains are. The material aspect of our brain is for judging and categorizing things and calling them what we know. And this is red and that's blue. That's a judgment, right? I'm judging it. And so
there's something different. So there's the discernment. There's seeing the difference between, like a life-giving quality compared to a life-draining quality. That's discernment. But the judgment is the pride part. It's where you position yourself to be greater than they are, or it can be reverse pride, where you, in fact, position yourself to be lesser than they are. And that's the inner function of separation that doesn't serve. So anyway, I just like to make that distinction. And yes, it's Raylan Fox. Thank you, Maya. I appreciate that. Yeah. So shout out to her.
I just say, the way I use the word is that I say, like, I'm happy to judge people. I judge myself. I judge everything I encounter. I'm okay with that. I can even say I am better than some people at blank, right? I am better at spelling than some people. I am way worse at swimming than many people. Like, it's okay also for me to rank myself and others. The problem is then when you attach value to that, right? If I say you're a narcissist, you are, that's okay. If I say you're a narcissist and therefore you're not a human being, you don't count. That's wrong, right? So it's the value judgment, I think, that is more important than, I just think it gets confusing for people, because otherwise they're like, well, I'm not allowed to judge. And I'm like, man, if you don't judge, that's how predators come in and attack your children and you don't notice, right? Or that's how predators come in and attack you and you didn't notice, because you fell or were trained that it's not okay to judge. It's not okay to judge. It is okay to judge. It's okay to see a person and go, ugh, I don't like that person. I don't even need to know why, right? When I think I was about 16, and on the place where I grew up was very rural, and it was very white, and there was very few people of color there. And a black man moved to our island, and it was one of the few black people we had around. So everybody was like excited, right? Because you're teenagers and you're weird. And this is a new thing. It would be exciting enough that he's new. It's even more exciting that he's black. So everybody wants to be friends with this guy. Everybody's telling me about this guy. I'm hearing about this guy. I'm like, cool, he must be really cool. Everybody really likes him. I walk in, I can see auras. And I walk into a house one day. I'm seeing him for the first time ever, and he has a black aura. By the way, black aura is so exceptionally rare. I've seen maybe a handful in my entire life. It's a really, really low state of deep negativity. People who are enjoying harming others are going to have black in their aura. That kind of psychopath. So I walk in and I see that, and I just look at him and I turn around and I leave. Well, to everyone else, I'm racist now. They're like, what? You don't, he's black and you just don't like him? And I also at the time couldn't be like, he has a black aura, because nobody gets that or knows what it means. Or I barely knew what it meant, right? I'm like discovering this again, pre-internet. I have no idea what's going on. People just glow and it indicates to me like what they're feeling or doing in life, right? So I'm just like encountering this. So I'm like, no, I just don't want to be around that person. And they're like, well, you're so rude. You're so racist. Everyone was mad at me. But I was like, I know I can't be around this person. It feels disgusting and I don't like it. I'm not okay with it, whatever it is, right? So I just made that choice for myself and I wasn't. And shortly thereafter, that person did unspeakable things to a child in our larger group and then killed 3 people, wounded 2 others nearly mortally, and then killed himself.
Oh my goodness.
It's
Wow.
okay to judge people. It's totally okay to judge people. And if you can't let yourself judge people, you might get murdered or worse.
Okay, I'm going to say one more thing on this, just a possible nuance is people think the only option is to judge or be asleep and naive. And that's a pendulum. You go back and forth. Oh, I'll just, rose-colored glasses and they're probably okay, or they mean the best, or all of that kind of crap and delusions. So there is another possibility. And then so we can leave this one because we're going to go on and talk about maybe a good segue is around, like you said, the deep state of negativity and the topic we were going to get into today around vibration and cymatics and I want to talk about swearing because it's kind of fun. And it's something I think that we've all had around our lives one way or another. You probably had the experience where you weren't allowed to swear, or there was swearing going on and it was very contextual. Like, this is the only place we swear. Do you have children, Lindsey?
No.
Okay, yeah. So raising my kid, he was free to swear. But boy, did he know when not to swear. He knew exactly when not to swear. So it wasn't somehow just this, free for all kind of thing. And so it's a fascinating cultural phenomena. You have that inner anthropologist going on. That was my, if I took any track academically, that would have been the one I'd followed. I only ended up doing an undergrad degree and then getting completely disillusioned by academics. But it's as a cultural phenomenon, I'm really curious what if you want to talk about your findings there.
Yeah, I mean, I could go so many places with it. In the basic aspect of it, I don't think swearing matters. I don't think any word inherently really matters unless you're speaking Sanskrit, perhaps. But it matters
as well.
more intentionally, or more, I should say, importantly, what your intention is. And it's interesting, if you have ever tried this with a dog, for example, or a small child, pre-verbal. And you go up to them and you say, pancakes, pancakes, pancakes. Like, they just are like, oh, we're excited. Cool. We're happy. Like, they're vibing off your emotion and your energy and the tone of your voice. And this is communicating much more than the word is. And, people have heard this, I'm sure, a million times. We're like 80% or more nonverbal. Even what we're doing right now, like we're seeing each other's body languages, or we're nodding, or we're all of these things. And that's, communicating so much to people. I was actually saying this to my soulmate, Johnny, the other day. We were talking about a specific narcissist who is in one of his communities that he's a part of, and this person, whatever. So he was like, well, you've interacted with her at the different events we go to and stuff. And I'm like, no, only once. And he's like, how has she not like messed with you? And she messes with everybody. And I was like, because the one time she met me, she saw instantly there was no part of me that had any purchase for her. And so she's never encountered me again by her own choice. I didn't say or do anything. I just said, hello. And then she left because she could just tell, because it's so nonverbal. In fact, predators know when you're someone who's preyable, right? And that's why, again, we were talking about when you have the codependency, then you're going to attract the narcissist because they know, because you know, and they know beyond words what's going on. So words aren't that important, actually. And also there's clusters of sounds that we've just decided, oh, this was a game we used to play when I was really young, where we'd say, what if a tree was called a pen? Well, now we're going to call all the trees pens, right? We're going to call the pen microphone, and we're just going to switch it around because it doesn't matter, right? But there's other words that do matter, and they do seem inherent to the thing, and they do seem to hold an actual energy. And those are much more sacred and interesting and rare, and we don't seem to use them anymore. but those exist. So swearing holds power because we assigned it this value. You know, saying the word doesn't matter, but we all decided that word, right? And so I'm with you. I like to reclaim words. I like to use them in different ways. I like to take away their power to hurt if possible. Right. And we can all empower ourselves to do that by realizing the word doesn't matter at all. But we can also do it by using it in various ways. It also does matter in that if we have all agreed for the most part that this word isn't appropriate to use, then it's not really appropriate for you to choose to use it in public, right? It's not really cool for you to just force it on people if, as a society, we've said that word's not cool. It's not really great. Let's not do it. When I was becoming a teacher of children, I had this worry because I swore a lot. I was like deep in my language. I was deep in my culture and music and everything. And so I had a lot of swearing, and it was like I couldn't not swear. I'd just be talking to people and just all the swear words would just be laced into whatever I was saying, academic or not, right? So I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to be in a classroom of children 10, 11, 12, whatever age and not swear? But I'm like, your child who you're describing, like as soon as I was actually in front of the kids, I just couldn't have sworn if I wanted to almost, because everything in you just recognizes, right? Like the innocence and the inappropriateness, and your brain just switches. We're actually genius beings, and we can code switch of all kinds of ways going into the anthropological lens. And we do it whether we've never noticed it or not. When we're speaking to someone we perceive to be of authority or fancier than us or something, we speak in a certain way, and we hold ourselves in a certain way. And when we speak to someone we perceive to be less powerful or, less appropriate or something, we speak in a different way. And we speak to someone who we think is our equal in a peer level, we speak in a different way. We just do it all the time. So it was very natural, actually. And I did it with ease. I've never looked back, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that words aren't that important. I appreciate that so much, because you got the contingent on the other side, like, oh, words are so powerful, woo, 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 like this. And it's like, so, there's been, say, I'll use the alternative law crap world, that it's like 99.9% crap over there. And it's all based on this word thing. And then you're in word jail. You can't use the word human anymore because the Black's Law Dictionary says it's monster. Well, actually, we had a beautiful meeting in the House of Free Will, completely debunking that, absolutely debunking, by showing the historical context of how that actually came to be. Same with the all caps letter name. People, that's a little bit different from a word, but that's been imbued with such meaning. And same thing. The only reason that the all caps name has any existence of any kind is because the first typewriter only had capital letters.
I love
that. It's a stylistic inheritance which has zero meaning beyond that, right? So, and then there was a point, you couldn't use the word understand anymore, because they said that meant you were claiming that you stand under someone when you're understanding. So to take the most beautiful word, actually, like in its meaning, that we sit here to understand and to grow our understanding and expand our intelligence and our awareness. And then all of a sudden people are talking like morons, and they're like, oh, I overstand, or I blah, 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 like this. And it's so I officially took myself out of word jail maybe 2 years ago. And I just use the words, right? If they express in that moment, like you said, I heard as little as 5% of communication comes through the words.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them. And isn't it a strange paradox that there is still a lot of value in being precise with your language and your communication at the same time. So what do you think is up there?
I love it. I'm actually an author before anything else, and so words are my weaponry, you could say. And I love the precision, I love the nuance, I love the feeling you get from certain words, whether they have the exact same meaning or not, the connotation of words. Like, this is all art, right? And so it's beautiful, and it's like the art behind me. Like, it takes great skill to decide what to put where and how to construct it to have this effect on the people who are going to encounter it. And that's actually what's most important, is like, well, who are you talking to? So again, if you're talking to a child and you're just swearing at them, and their understanding of that is like anger or harshness, like, well, now you're communicating that to them, even if what you meant was like, we're having a great time and we're all equals here, right? So you have to know, what is this other thing I'm trying to connect with? What am I trying to express to them? What is the way they're going to receive it best? And this goes back to that anthropological piece, right? Like, this is their way of perceiving. So how will I communicate to them what I need? When cultures are encountering each other in history and they're separate languages, like you have to go back to like the basics of like, how do we just get information across to each other, maybe even without words. But what a great experience when you encounter these like high-minded, high craft, like beautiful artistic renditions of words that like give you meaning beyond the words. And that's really the point of it, right? I can put these words in this way and they say this technically, but what it means and what you get from it is unspeakable, actually, right? It's ineffable. Like we can't actually communicate it with words at all, but we can make the words in such a way that a bunch of people will actually receive that. The highest way of communicating is mind to mind, heart to heart, soul to soul, right? And we can all do that too, but we've mostly forgotten it. But that's the purest, and it's beyond words. It doesn't have words, right? So they're this clumsy sort of tool, but we can use them really well. We can use them really perfectly if we know what we're about and we know what we mean and we know what the person receiving it is likely to get out of it. But it's almost to the point with a lot of people where you do have to like lay all this groundwork. It's not a bad thing, but it's often necessary. I mean, even the word judge, like we were just talking about it, like I use it in a different way than you. So for us to have a conversation, like we have to figure out what we want that word to mean. It doesn't actually inherently mean anything. It does, but like I said, the connotative value of things are all cultural, they're all relative, they're all subjective. And that meaning actually matters a lot, right? And we can play this game where we come up with 12 synonyms that have the exact same denotative definition, exact same, but they feel very different. And when you use one or the other is going to totally change like how the other person perceives you, right? So we have to choose. Okay, if we're going to use this word, like what value do we want it to have? We don't actually have to do that with our friends, our family, our lovers often, right? But sometimes we do with people, especially if they're like, no, you can't say understand anymore. It means this actually. Like, okay, well, if I'm going to interact with you, then I guess I can't say that word because you will stop the conversation and tell me what I mean, or, you know, so I guess you're right. I can't use that word, but with me, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it's a very generous spirit when you recognize who you're in front of, and that if they're going to get tripped up every single time you use a word, then is it worth it? Is it facilitating any kind of communication or goodness? So yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. What was I going to say? Emil was asking about the N word instead of the soft A. And, you know, is there not, by the way, what was your archetype? I keep thinking I'm going to ask you that.
I forgot.
On the quiz?
No lie. I forgot. I probably remembered an hour ago, but now I forgot.
Oh my goodness. Okay, darn. Would you have it? Yeah, would you have it open on your screen because it was just a pop-up? No, and I wouldn't be able to look it up real fast. I can, but it takes a little bit of digging in data. So
if I had like the list in front of me, I could tell you, but I don't just remember.
Okay, so you got starting at the beginning of the journey. It's the child.
Well, I'll tell you this. I had only top row answers. Every answer I gave was the first option, I believe.
Okay.
Do you know what that results in?
No. So I'll name them and you can stop me if you hear the word.
Okay.
So there's the child, the rebel, the warrior, the nurturer.
I think it was the nurturer.
Okay.
What else is there?
The lover, the hedonist, the king, and the alchemist.
I think it was the nurturer.
Okay. Okay, very good. Yeah, so that makes some sense, and it's really not to pigeonhole anybody and like, oh, nurturer kind of thing. But it is a match, say, with all of the work that you're doing to care for people and to heal and bring about messages that are going to help people grow and learn, and then your depth of knowledge on codependency. That's very, very common for the nurturer. Like the narcissist will attract the nurturer that's going to look after them and take on their pain and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just always fun for me to see. And it's not a written in stone thing. It's a moving target. So it's just reading this time in this moment of your life where potentially you could get some benefit to work on the patterns of that archetype. So that's all it means. If anybody is interested and hasn't already done that quiz, I'll share a link quickly in the chat here. It's kind of fun. I think it's fun, unless you create quizzes, and it's not fun because you know where everything's headed in that world. But if we go back to the anthropological, evolution of language and there are times, say, especially when I was writing my book, and I know you know because you've been through this process. How many times now? How many publications do you have?
I think I'm at 8 and I have 4 that I haven't published yet.
Unreal. Amazing. That's incredible. And then does there come a time where you want to swear at the, like, the middleman between you and that expression are these words,
Yeah.
right? And it takes a lot of time and energy and labor. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think it was like that for me for a long time. Again, I started writing very young and reading very young, and I was quite precocious, and so that was all of my life, mostly writing. And by the time I got to, I think it was 2012 actually, I got a sort of download, which I wouldn't have called it that or even believed in that at the time, but I received the download of a trilogy of a story in trilogy format, and so I saw each book, and I saw like the main sort of the main really loose main sort of plot of each and how they interconnected. It just like appeared in my brain. I grabbed a paper and I wrote it down, and I was like, what was that? I was just like, huh. And so I was like, well, cool. And I told someone, I was like, I would love to read these books that just came to me like as in this idea, but I don't write fiction, and they're fiction books. And they were like, well, you should just write it. And I was like, I don't write fiction. I don't know if you just heard me, but like I've been writing for 3 decades practically, and I've never written fiction. And one time I tried, and it was horrible. It was just deeply contrived and empty and like so bad. I'm just not good at it. I'm a lover of fiction. I understand it. I study it. I teach it. I get it. I just don't do it well. And so I'm not doing this, but I want someone to do it so bad because I want to read these books. And they were like, well, you should just try. I was like, that's stupid. You can't just try to write a trilogy when you haven't even written a short story well in your life. And they're like, just try. I was like, okay, I think that's really dumb, but I will actually, because I really want to read this book. And so I sat down one day with this no idea, no plan, nothing, not a plot sketched out, nothing, no characters, nothing, just this very loose idea of a concept of a plot. And I sat down and I just sat in front of the computer staring at it for a second with a Word document open or whatever. And then I just started getting flashed in my mind like complete and full scenes with fully developed characters and fully developed dialogue. And I was just like trying to type it all out and write it as best I could. And then I'd like write it out and be like, whoa, that's weird. I wonder what's going to happen next. Because I was already like, I didn't come up with this, not consciously. And then the next scene would sort of hit me, and it'd be like a totally different scene that seems like a totally different part of the book and totally different characters. And I'm like, okay. And I would just write that. And I'm like, I don't even know how these connect. And then I'd sit down again and like another, and it just kept going that way until I had a whole trilogy. So I still don't think I write fiction, but there it is. And I didn't try that hard to come up with what words, because I was just trying to keep up. And it wasn't word by word that it was coming through. It was just, I was trying to describe what I was seeing and hearing and understanding. And so I enjoyed reading it. I think the words came through because I had so much experience writing and reading that they were just sort of there to be used by whatever this was that came through. But this was actually when I started believing in downloads and channeling, because I just did it. Yeah, I had to experience it to believe in it. I would see it before then. I'd hear people talk about it and I'd be like, I guess they're schizophrenic. Like, right? That was my idea. I was like, you talk like you're schizophrenic. You're describing things that sound like you're schizophrenic. Now I understand. I mean, other people probably think I'm schizophrenic, and that's fine. I totally get it because I used to see the same thing in people like me. But yeah, so I don't have the experience, except in my nonfiction, of trying to come up with the words or trying to craft it in a way or trying to make it sound, and I don't really write like that much anymore. I'm much more often like tap into this thing, and that's what comes through.
That's fun. I love that. And the word channeling, if we're gonna get stuck on words, that could be one that I would get stuck on. But it's just a fact that you sit there, and sometimes, I mean, pretty much all the time, I will task myself, I'm going to create this. And often a title will come, and oh, there's the thing. And I might even tell people that I'm creating this thing and it's uncreated, but I have a title.
Yeah.
And I might say, like, could I actually create that? Could I do that? And you sit down and like bring the whole thing is just there. And it wasn't there before.
Yeah.
Right. And where did it come from? I used this example a few times, but I believe it was Prince would say he'd have to wake all of his recording studio people up in the middle of the night to record a song, because if he waited until the morning, then Michael Jackson would have
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
this is actually something this is what I was saying when I thinking people schizophrenic. I would hear authors talk about writing fiction, and they would say things like, "Oh, when the idea comes for you, you better get it out there, or else it's going to go to someone else." And I'm like, "That's not how ideas work. They're in your brain, like you know." But I've seen it happen now over and over and over again, where I get an idea and I'm like, I don't really have time or space for that, and then either someone I know will do it, which is even more interesting to me that it didn't travel that far, or I will see shortly after someone else publish it or talk about it or make a movie about it or whatever it is. And I'm like, wow, it really is in the noosphere, and it's trying to find its access point, right? Who's going to take me in? Who's going to channel me through? And so there's progressions of channeling, and one progression of it is what I just described. It's not a very direct or divine channel. It's just a channel that opened and something fully formed came through me. I didn't create it, right? And people say, "Oh, I love your book you wrote." And I'm like, I still can't say I wrote it. I have to, or no one knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I don't feel that way. I feel like I birthed it, and there it is. It just had a life of its own, and it just came through. But I would hear that too. And, you hear it from a lot of musicians. You hear it from people who are exceptionally well versed in whatever it is they're doing, right? They've got their 10,000 hours or more in. That's where you start hearing this of like, oh, I woke up with the song in my head. Billy Joel describes this too in one of his songs. He's like, I literally heard it. It woke me up because it was so loud. And I went and wrote it down, and I didn't even like it. I didn't even want to write it. I just did because there it was. And clearly it needed to live. It's one of his biggest hits. So I just think everyone actually experiences this. It's a natural human phenomenon. It's a natural thing that people do, and call it whatever you want. People have called it divine inspiration. Doesn't matter to me. Channeling is just one word that works.
Yeah. And I'm not worried about it all. I was just sort of joking.
I just know people. I was right. I was that person.
Got it. There's one other element about that I think, and I'm wondering if it's similar to what we're talking about around power. When you seek power, then that can be problematic compared to the person that there's a natural organic stepping into responsibility and leadership where it's needed and they can actually be of service. So, because I think that channelers can end up like maybe going crazy and like that wasn't a very scientific way to say that, but basically it's that they seek the channeling and then potentially open up to not just the thing that they want to come through, but the things they also don't want. And I believe, okay, yeah, that was part of where I was at. There was a time in my work where I would talk about calling on archetypes. You'll never hear me talk that way ever. That's an inversion. And when you call on anything, I'll let you take it from here since you're nodding your head.
I don't suggest that anyone call on any energy unless they know it truly in their heart to be good, true, and beautiful. And then it's fine. Just like you would call a friend to talk about something. There's energies in the universe you can call on that are perfectly aligned and attuned and high energy. And in my experience, also people have spiritual guides and allies, whether they like it or not. So, to call on them or to ask for support through, or even to call on God or source or whatever you conceive of the unknowable unknown as, whatever word you apply to that energy, the universal life force, love, whatever it is, to call on that, right? Cool. But if you're just going to go randomly inviting something in, really horrifying consequences can occur. And there's a long history of both demonic or negative entity attacks or attachments. Again, some people don't believe in that. That's fine. I understand they're very real, right? I've experienced it as such after trying not to believe in it. And that is very dangerous. And there's also psychic breaks that can happen where you're calling in something that's way beyond what you're ready for, but it's going to come through. And because you're not ready for it, like your brain mentally will break. You will no longer have a positive ability to exist in this consensus reality. And these are the people you see wandering around quite mad all over the place, or, locked up somewhere and institutionalized. something happened, right? There's a reason why also also, like, when I'm teaching people, I teach spiritual tools and all sorts of things. I don't teach magic, I don't teach incantation, and I don't teach summoning, and I don't teach a lot of things because there's a long, well-established history, even in mystical and spiritual and religious traditions, of that sort of thing causing psychic breaks. So I'm a very much non-force person. I don't suggest people go like poking holes into the higher levels and inviting things through. And at the same time, I think it's cool to pray. I think it's cool to call on good, true, and beautiful spiritual energies if that's what you believe in and trust and know. And that's all what I teach. And it's very non-force. It's very, permission oriented, invitation oriented. And also, I think it's has to do with humility, right? Of saying, like, if something good, true, and beautiful can come through me, wow, I'm so honored. Thank you. And it's not me doing that, right? This is why I have a hard time saying I wrote that book, this trilogy, because like that's not how it feels to me. And I'm very clear that what comes through me isn't me. And if it is good, if it does heal people, what an honor. And if I ever start taking, ownership of that, or saying I'm healing people and I'm doing this and I say well, now I'm diving off into that unwell, unbalanced, very prideful, very egoful, forceful way of being, which is the opposite of what I teach and do.
Right on. Yeah, I think that's, I appreciate very much everything that you said. And those psychic breaks, I think there's no mistake that they're promoting psychedelics to us, right? Like it's been a pretty steady climb. These are things that they're not to be played with, because you don't unfortunately have your discernment in those states. And I think it's possible to take on a lot of demonic attachments from there.
It's very possible to have a really positive experience. It's again, and once you say that, a lot of people are like, I'm the one that can do that. And you're like, well, be careful of your pride again, right? Like, be careful of your ego. I don't suggest experiences like that for most people for that reason. But it can be used as a tool just like anything else. I mean, there's a reason shamans use psychedelics in a lot of their work, right? If you know what you're about and you have a good balance and you are very healed, you can use these tools. I love microdosing when it's appropriate. I use even macrodosing in some ceremonies for people. It has to be so intentional. It has to be so pure and clear. It has to be so protected and intentional, right? Like, all of these things have to be really deeply embedded. And a lot of purification ahead of time, a lot of clarification ahead of time, a lot of release of any sort of ego or pride or force before that can even happen. So it's not common. I do that work. It's when I'm really deeply called that is actually the right move for this person in this moment. Then yeah, it's a medicine. But just like most medicines, you wouldn't just take it and hope. You're not just going to like take a bottle of pills and be like, I don't know, I might be sick. Let's see. That's not the best thing, and it will cause harm for you. But there's always an appropriate application of this, right? There's always an appropriate way to do it, not for everyone at every time. And most of the time it's not.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I like what you said at the end there, because it's become more of also a recreational thing in the guise of this deep spiritual experiences. I mean, you hear a lot of stories, the fallout of these so-called movements, and you get the people that just deemed themselves to be the shaman. All of a sudden they're the shaman and they're leading and creating a little business industry out of that. And
it can get really dark.
Can get, exactly.
Yeah. And especially, again, like we were talking about, if you don't have your sort of discernment on and you're not able to say this person has this intention and this purification level and this right ability, then you're just saying, oh, you're a shaman, cool, I'll go with you. Like, well, are they? Because a lot of channelers, shamans, spiritual guy, all these people are actually just liars who want money and attention. Or they're narcissists, right? Like, this is actually why I started from the point of channelers aren't real. None of this is real. All these people are liars, because most of them are. So if you can't trust yourself to really discern that, then it's probably not something you should do. I also see, it's actually funny. So decades ago, I sort of told my spiritual guides and allies, like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to do DMT or ayahuasca or whatever. And if it is appropriate for me, please make it like really obvious. And I'm open, right? I'm open to be guided into whatever is actually best for me. Never came up. Went to Ecuador, could have done it in the jungle, wasn't aligned, wasn't guided, so I didn't. Years and years and years and years, and actually just last year, I was guided to do Bufo, which is the DMT, right? Which is not something I wanted to do. By the way, it's also not something I want to do. But this was my guidance. It was very direct. It was very obvious. And when I say obvious, I mean I couldn't have ignored it if I tried. I don't mean, oh, I saw 555. Like now I have to do DMT. Like not just like a synchronicity. It was a series of quite clear, exceptionally clear and profound messages over and over again that this was what I was doing. I went into guidance of it. All of this, right, is deeply aligned. So I did. That's its own story. While I was doing that, in that part of my journey, I encountered a lot of people who are essentially like addicted to seeking these psychedelic experiences. Not the same way you'd be addicted to any other drug, but in like they had an experience that seemed profound, so they want more. And so they're going to do it again. And then they're going to go back to Peru. And then they're going to go over to and even like chocolate, cacao ceremonies or whatever. And all of this, like every week, all the time. And I'm like, well, now what even is this? Like, what are you able to get from something that you're just slamming into your consciousness like over and over again? Is that actually in alignment? I don't think so. I think you're actually running from something now, right? Like, what are you running from? Or what is it in your ego that feels so attached to this, right? That's also a very imbalanced relationship to these medicines. Medicine wasn't meant for you to take it all the time. Take it when you have a specific need, a specific reason, and then you don't take it again, right? Or you might, but like someday, who knows? So it's very, very interesting to see the culture that's built up around this. Like you said, it seems sort of intentional and like continuously encouraged and placed. And then we have to question who's placing this and why. And you really just have to have such high discernment for yourself in this world. It gets crazier and crazier all the time.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. You have a lot of respect for it, obviously. And, I came to it as a teenager. That wasn't exactly the intentional or the ceremonial or any of that kind of space. And then, later in my adulthood, I turned to it much more for the journey, for the inward. It wasn't a party kind of thing. It often wasn't even with other people, just on my own, going deeply inward. And then there came a time where I realized that, I say the last few times with psilocybin, that I had received the same message. And it was like, oh, the message is on repeat. I think I got the message. I think I got the message. Now I just have to actually, implement this. And I never again felt I never felt the call, not even once. And then there's one other aspect is that poison is incredibly addictive.
Yeah.
We don't think of it that way at all, but you can see it. There's I won't get into it or it being another subject, but food addictions, and I'm not talking the crap. I'm talking things we think are good.
Yeah.
And when you extricate yourself from the addiction, and you see how that's exactly what's happening with that, because most of those things make you high because you're poisoned, because it is compromising the liver and setting off a whole dynamic that yes, can be very revealing and all kinds of things. So in this case, I have no judgment of it, but I'm seeing, is it really the pumping of it into more popular culture? Is it just another way to destabilize the culture?
Mm-hmm. And like you said, you can have really dark experiences. You can have really dark attachments. That you're opening the door to those if you're not aware of keeping the doors closed while you're accessing these places and times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's the same as sort of, I talk about tarot. One of my most horrible experiences in life was actually accidentally getting a demonic attachment, which again, I didn't believe in at all at the time, through tarot. And now I'm reading tarot again, but I know what I'm doing now, right? And I know how to access what's good, true, and beautiful instead of everything else that exists. And you could accidentally, get into tarot and get a very weak or minor or no attachment, or you could get into tarot and accidentally get a high level demonic attack and attachment going on. So, again, with any spiritual tool, with any sort of foray into that side of things, if it's what you're choosing for yourself, I would use great discernment and go very carefully and be very intentional about protecting yourself. Now, I'll say it goes hand in hand with the other things we're talking about, like psychological healing, emotional healing, mental healing, healing the dynamic of the codependent and the narcissist, or any other trauma or karma you have, because the more of that you have unhealed, the more likely you are going to access the negative instead of the positive, because it's what you're carrying around, right? You have unseen, you have the shadow you haven't integrated yet, then it's going to be reflected at you. It's going to be an access point for something. So it's not the time or the place to go dabbling into those areas if you haven't yet gone within, right?
Yeah, I remember my very last ayahuasca ceremony. I think I did maybe 4 of them in total, and the third one, I got my butt kicked. It was a horrible experience at many levels. So the next and last time, again, I never ever felt the need to go again. I worked my butt off going into it, and I just tried to find everything inside myself that could potentially get expanded on during that ceremony, and then I ended up laughing through the entire thing. The guy beside me cried the entire time too, and it was the most joyful experience, and it was completely over for me. Like I honestly can't imagine going back to it if I was to feel called, fine, but yeah, it sort of did the deal. And then that's the ultimate thing, that we see ourselves, like you said. There's the hidden parts. They don't call it shadow for nothing. And it needs to capture our attention. If normal life isn't allowing that to happen, then the use of a substance at times could be appropriate. So yeah, it's interesting. To segue more into the cymatics and like frequency, and what else were we going to talk about? There was one other thing, the Sanskrit language, exactly, and the nature of this. So you're saying, like, words really don't have any inherent meaning, only what they're given. But is this a different place where the frequency and the vibration itself is meaningful and consistent?
Yeah, it is. So there are actually sounds. There's even allegedly the forgotten word or sound, which would transform us all instantly into our ascended states if we remembered it, which is really to say that once we remember, it will be the sound we make, right? But yeah, Sanskrit actually has this characteristic where all things do. So again, in our language, because it's so degraded, we could say almost anything, and the cymatic that's going to come out is going to have to do with our tone and the energy we're putting into it, right? More than the word itself. Whereas in Sanskrit, if you say any of the letters, they make a perfect harmonic, cymatically expressed sacred geometry. And that can't be an accident, actually. It could be an accident if 1 or 2 letters or 5 even did or something, but all 20, I think 29, I can't remember exactly, of their letters, perfect cymatic expression. Right? So again, I could be speaking into a water bowl or a plate of sand or whatever, and it would sometimes make a perfect geometrical, like image. And it would be accidental, essentially. But if I were a Sanskrit speaker and I knew the correct ways of speaking each of these letters, I would get a perfect one every time. And therefore, every word I spoke would be a series of perfect geometric shapes. Which it's beyond, I think, even our understanding of how that was then created or crafted, except that perhaps you can see there's more indication than just the geological or just the monolithic structures or just the artifacts we find, that we have fallen from a very high state into the degraded place we find ourselves now. If we had a language that was this perfect and it was spoken on earth by humans, recorded by humans, then here we are in this garbled nonsense world where the only way you can get to meaning is through really deep discernment. Now, back then, you therefore couldn't have lied. On the spiritual plane, when I'm accessing it, there's no lies. You cannot deceive on the spiritual plane. You can be tricked because your discernment isn't great, but nothing can actually lie to you, right? You can say, hey, are you good, true, and beautiful? And they could be like, why would you ask me that? And you could not follow up. And then you're talking to a negative entity that tricked you. But if they answer you, they can't say yes if the answer is no. Right? And this seems like Sanskrit was of a similar sort of nature, where you can't lie with it. The expression and the vibration coming out, it either is or isn't this thing. And you can't say it unless it's going to become this thing. the things, what we have left of Sanskrit language passed down to us is almost reduced to just Om. And almost everyone knows Om, which is kind of amazing. You could almost go to anyone and be like, Om, and they'd be like, oh, and they wouldn't say Sanskrit. They would just be like, Om, like they know what it is, right? People have heard of it. They've seen it. They understand it's Indian or something, right? It has to do with yoga or whatever their idea is. They know it. They recognize it. And that's kind of amazing. This ancient thing that is of a much higher ability level, consciousness level than we have left. And we all have at least that one bit left, right? And so if you Om, and if you're lucky enough to be able to Om into something that can express cymatics, like you can create bubbles and water and do this yourself in some way, or, if you want to, you can. But if you're lucky enough to see it, you'll see the perfection of Om. And you'll see why it's lasted this long. You'll see why people will just sit there and say Om over and over and over again and chant this seed syllable, because it actually contains the energy that is affecting you and reality. And you can tell that through cymatics, right? You can see it with cymatics, but you can feel it if you just do that. And this is the same as you can train yourself to be as sensitive to feel anybody's energy or anything's energy. Everyone can feel Om if you actually sit with it and Om to yourself. Well, there's all these other Sanskrit sounds too that you can actually use as seed syllables. And this is why we have actual mantras that are Sanskrit sounds. And if you do them, then you'll also feel the effect of them. And it's what's fascinating to me about that is, again, I come from actually a very scientific, logical point of view where I don't believe in any of this until I have to encounter it, and I'm forced to accept that it's real. And so that's how I've encountered all these things in my life, is by experiencing the reality of them. And so if you would have said to me, oh yeah, if you say this sound over and over again, it's really good for your mind and your heart and your soul and your body, I'd be like, what? But because I've sat and done it and I've felt the change in the room, I've done it and I've watched people's auras while they're doing it, and I watch it turn to a clear, stable field of color instead of the constant chaos which most of us are walking around in. So I've seen it and I felt it, and I've seen them feel it, and I've seen babies go, what? And just like stop and soothe. And so I know that it is effective. And I think anyone who sits and Ohms to themselves, or uses any of the sacred seed syllables to themselves, will feel the effect of it too. And I think you can prove it to yourself in that way, right? You don't need me to tell you, you can just do it.
Right. So fascinating. Did I tell you already I went to India 8 times and learned to read the Devanagari of the letters? There's 47. I just looked it up. I couldn't remember how many there were. Yeah, there's 47 of them. And one of the really interesting things that I found is that it's the only language you can't say, if you were to write music to it, which I had a teacher that was doing that, so it immediately inspired me to do that as well. And you can't mangle up the Sanskrit. It has a very specific way. It's prescribed right in the character exactly how it's pronounced. There's no silent letters. So when you were talking about it being like a language of truth in some ways, then there's no hidden agenda with this language. You can't, if you know how to use that character, if you know how to use that character, then you're going to be able to pronounce it. And then there was the whole kirtan movement. I don't know if you're familiar with that it became, sort of pop music turned into mantra, and it became, it was even one of the labels was carrying kirtan artists, and they all mangled the shit out of them in the Sanskrit. Right. It became this, it was painful to listen to, because I knew the power, I knew the potency that those sounds could have. And yeah, your voice is pretty and everything, but it's just not doing the job. There's something wrong here. Yeah. So I was a little bit of a, I was judging people about their, about their Sanskrit. And it's very precise. It's a kind of science of sound is often the way that it's described. And then here's one thing that I found, because I really did have it was like a mission for me to put this mantra out. I also did my own kirtan. I've got 4 CDs. I'd love to share a little bit with you since you're into this. And anybody else, put your hand up if you're interested in that. It's a little bit of a past life for me, but somehow still they're part of me. And then this, oh God, what was I going to say? Darn, I just missed my point. You know what I was going to say?
I don't.
Darn it.
I know that it actually matters deeply that people do it correctly when they're pronouncing this, because if it's all that we have left, we want to pass it down, right? So that we can get back to where we were going.
Okay, I remember. So in my birth, when I birthed my son, I was planning for the mantra to be the carrier of the space and, to create the space. And it was after birthing that I realized that mantras have no power. And that there's, so there's a relativity there that yes, there's and it's not to put it down or just like take one sentence and completely crush the whole thing. I'm still interested and fascinated by that whole science of sound, but the power, it made me wonder if there was some kind of like almost mimicry of an even more pure element in nature that could birth a baby, right? Because when you talk about you didn't write the book. Well, I didn't birth the baby.
Yeah.
That was just the force of life. Everybody step aside.
Get out of it.
Yeah.
The universe is coming through.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was just really humbling to see that there's a greater power, but the ability to remind ourselves and to take it, because every symbol, right? It's still, the Sanskrit is still going to be the symbol of reality, not reality itself. Or maybe, would you say that differently?
Well, I would say we can't see reality here and that we've never seen it. But what we call reality is everything we see and hear and feel and all our sensory data, right, that's coming through. So it's hard to describe it when you are, which version are we using? What are we actually talking about? The ultimate reality is beyond sound even, right? So the unknowable unknown or source or God or Tao or the way or whatever that is beyond sound. In fact, when we come out from that, the first thing that comes out is sound, and then light, and then matter, and then us, right? But behind all of that, something beyond all of it. I call it consciousness also. Consciousness is beyond sound, beyond light. It's the unknowable unknown. It's the piece of the unknowable unknown that we still have embedded in us, the part that's eternal, where everything else is not. Literally everything else. There's nothing that you can see or touch or feel or know or anything that is eternal except that thing, which is beyond your description and ability to understand. So ultimate reality is absolutely beyond sound. I wouldn't say therefore it has no power. I would say that there is a power much greater than it. Absolutely.
Right on. And then all of the symbols, which sound is, which a letter or a character is, can indicate and point back to its source.
Yeah.
And then we can use that as the shared conduit to remind ourselves of that experience. And that's why, it's not baby in the bathwater for me. Sorry for that metaphor, actually. It's not to throw it out or discount it. I actually just shared my music with somebody and they were like taken aback, like, oh my God, I never knew that about you. And you have to do this. And if I make a movie, you have to do the music, she said. Beautiful woman. And, so then we can share our experiences that are, what you're talking about is indescribable or undescribable. It's beyond what we can say. The reality of the behind the reality is you really can't say or even name, but we can create that shared reality through the symbols.
Absolutely. And that's actually all anything is. It's just a symbol or a representation of a thing that you can't actually ever describe or know directly or see until you rejoin with it, at which point you wouldn't even have a concept of what we're even doing here. You'd be like, what was I doing over there? That was weird. Now I'm here. Right? Like, who is I really? There's no I even. So yeah, you would lose everything to go back to it. And so here we are in everything, and we don't lose it. We just have like the slightest, tiniest inclination idea, and we can have everything sort of pointing back to it, and we'll never actually know this. So I call it the unknowable unknown. We don't even know what it is. We couldn't know about it. We can't even really describe that, right? But this is what we were talking about before too, with the arranging of words, such a way that like just the definition, not a big deal. But the way it's arranged and how it is collected and how it's presented hits you in this way that like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? And what you receive from it is this, oh yeah, there's something beyond all this, right? It's like, this is what art is actually for. And I'm way past the thing where like art is something that makes a reaction. Like, well, everything makes a reaction, so everything's art. So then art is meaningless. So what art actually is something that reminds you of that eternal part of yourself that is unspeakable, ineffable, unknowable. but you do actually know it. You just can't sense it or describe it, right? But you do actually know it. It's like true gnosis. And that's what art is for us to be like, oh yeah, the thing I can't put my finger on, right? The thing that none of us can actually express. That's art. When art does that, that's art.
That's beautiful. I love that. So any other direction you would like to go in? We're starting to come to the end of our time, but in the world of cymatics and waveform phenomena and the effect on our body, mind, and spirit, anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I'll share, I think sometimes we can talk about this and some people will be listening and they'll think that somehow like you or I are different from them, right? And they're like, oh, well, that would be cool to have that experience or to think like that or to whatever, or to do that. Like, well, if you think that, then that is true of you, that you are that, right? So if you're looking at either of us and you're like, I'd like to be a podcast host, well, then you'd be a podcast host. You should do it. Or you're like, I'd like to channel or be in connection with source or God, then you can and you do and you should. You're like, I want to heal people or whatever, then you're a healer. Because people who aren't attracted to that don't think that, right? People who don't have that within them don't relate to any of this or see themselves or are attracted to any of that. So I always like to remind people that whatever you're resonating with is you. It's inside of you and it's there for a reason. And so maybe it's calling you to go a little deeper into it or further into it and to believe in your own empowerment and ability. And so that's my favorite thing to do, is to help people, whatever that is. And sometimes it's, becoming a spiritual healer or using their spiritual gifts or becoming more psychic or learning tarot or something. And sometimes it's like becoming a better barmaid or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It's actually just whatever it is that's calling you and that you want to purify or heal in yourself or step into in your own empowerment. And it's really what we're all doing here, right? We're all doing here is we're healing all of our old crud and we're stepping into our higher level. So, and some people are like, it's the time, and it is the time. It's also all you were ever doing here is healing yourself and your ancestral line and your past life stuff, and also stepping into your highest form and further consciousness and higher consciousness. So it's the point. It is the purpose, actually. This is the other thing. I think people are like, what's my purpose? It's like, well, what do you love? What have you felt like you would like to be doing? That's your purpose, right? It's not actually a job. It's actually like the thing that you are attracted to healing, transforming, and creating more of. So I love to help people do that. Beth likes to help people do that. That's actually what we're doing here. And anything you felt resonating and anything we're talking about it's you. You're the one.
That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, sacred purpose. There's nothing like it. To me, that's the most dangerous weapon of all.
Yeah.
Against tyranny, against what we're up against these days. So that, yeah, if everyone was walking with the sacred purpose, then could they control us?
No.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
That's why I'm like, yeah, technically you can put me in a present, I guess. I'm not giving you permission. I'm just saying, like, perhaps you have the strength and will to do it and could pull it off. But realistically, like, no one can imprison me because I do what I want when I want. I don't ask permission. So, like, I'm free, right? And so it doesn't actually matter what anyone else is doing. It doesn't matter if the government's planning a thing. It doesn't matter if whatever is happening around me. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm free. I'm whole. I know who I am. There's actually nothing else that I could need or want but that. Everything else is incidental. Sometimes I get really caught up in it and overwhelmed by it, or really like in my ego about it, and then I come back out and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'm better than ever, actually, right? Because now I've transformed one more thing. So I think we're unstoppable when we really go deep into the healing and honoring of ourselves, truly.
That's beautiful. Nice. I love that. I always say that when I create, to your points about being an artist, then I forget I'm not free. I completely forget that. It's not even on the table or a
You're
question.
a powerful being. You get to create your own freedom.
Exactly. Well, this has been a beautiful discussion. Do you want to tell people how to take you up on working with you? I know you have workshops and classes and one-on-one services as well.
Yeah, so I have roguesoul.org is the best place. It's everything I do. My show is there. I do the video, I do the lives, I do the podcast, or like Beth here. All my services are there. So, if you're looking to just talk through some things or learn some new skills, then the coaching and talk session is there. I do the tarot past life readings for people. I do spiritual channeling of your spiritual guides and allies and your highest self, as well as blessings, in which you will receive a lot if that is something that calls you. I also am doing another class. I do classes from time to time, group classes. I find them to be highly powerful and very, very advantageous to the people who choose to take them. There's still spots left in the upcoming class in September, which is actually becoming a heart-centered healer. So having just talked about, if that's something that calls you, then here's an opportunity for you. It really is something that anyone can do, but more importantly, it's something that anyone who feels the inclination and wants to can do. And so this class is meant to give you all the tools you would need to continue to become a better and better healer of spiritual nature now and into the future. There's also plenty of other classes that will be coming up over time. So if you want to sign up to my email list on the site when you visit, then that's at the bottom of every page. But otherwise, I'm all over. I'm on Instagram and Twitter, as we were talking about at the beginning. Like, I don't really like to be anywhere, but I am everywhere. So you can find me and follow me in those places too. And I love interacting with people on those platforms. So yeah, and thank you, Beth, so much for all you do for the show, for having me, for your beautiful conversation and questions. And it's been really fun.
You are very welcome. And maybe close with a comment from Emil. A well frog cannot imagine the ocean, nor a summer insect conceive of ice. How can a scholar understand the Tao? He is restricted by his own learning.
Yeah, as they say, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao.
That's it. That's it. All right. Well, thank you very much, Linsey. I'm going to stay and make just a couple of announcements, and then I hope we can connect up soon. Really
awesome.
happy to reconnect with you.
Yes, you too.
Okay.
All right. Be well.
Bye for now. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That was beautiful. I totally enjoyed that conversation. Very deep, as usual. It always goes deep around here, if you haven't noticed already. And so if anybody out there would like to connect with Linsey, you can find her at roguesoul.org, as she was talking about. And then I am hosting my next interview coming up is with Danny Katz, I believe. I don't know the date offhand, but it'll be coming up. If you're a fan of her, she's another beautiful creative soul. So I'm looking forward to that. And you can, like I said, if you want to do a quiz at my website and find out where on the path of purpose you are, you can click this link either here in the chat or in the show notes. And thank you, Maya. I'm really glad that you were here. And thanks for that, finding Ray Lynn's name as well. Again, shout out to her, who's been battling the porn in children's libraries. Like, we ever had to say that? Come on, what the heck is that? The next thing I'll tell you about is similar in a way to what Linsey is doing, but a little bit different. Is I train coaches in the arts of deprogramming and working with the archetypes of the hero's journey. I did a talk not too long ago, specifically on the power of questions, which is a really big tool within those tools. And it helps you to not be the person that just is analyzing someone and telling them what to do and giving them your prescription and likely projecting on them what's inside yourself, not healed yet. And so this is a really graceful way to simultaneously do the inner work for yourself, learn to take radical responsibility for your life, to work on things that are not just the other guy's problem and you're all good sitting here having no issues just because everybody else is bad and wrong, and stepping into greater leadership in your life and being available to others as a coach. I use that word just because there's no other good word. We're not in word jail here, but it is a highly unregulated way to be in somebody's world. Not all coaching systems are made the same by any stretch of the imagination. And I take a lot of pride. This will be my 7th time running this training. It is a 7-month training. So it's not a little thing. It's not like a weekend certificate. And this is, it's not a little thing to work with people's unconscious, as if, and that's kind of a bad way to say it. It's not that you work with their unconscious. It's being there to facilitate them to do that work, to bring up from what is unconscious for them and to make that known to them so they can make decisions about it. Because if stuff just stays embedded in our unconscious, we have no say over it, or it's as if we have no say over it, and it will run you rather than you running it. We've been given a great deal of gifts. Every archetype is intensely gifted, and so if you bring enough of it to light, this is how I saved my life from cancer almost 25 years ago. If you bring enough of something to the light, the energy shifts, and you go more from the gravity of the unconscious to the more awakened space, which is a greater place to be, so you can make decisions based on life and not just cooperate with death unconsciously. So I did the open house, and you can get the recording by signing up at that link in the chat there, or you can go to my website and find that. All of the details. Journey Code starts on the 10th of September with an orientation. Classes start on the 17th, and they go weekly right through to the, I believe, end of April, with a break around the holidays, the holy days. And if you'd like to stay in a more regular conversation with me, Telegram is a great place. I'm going to share a link to the King Hero chat there. We also have the House of Free Will, which is more of a private, behind the scenes group, building community, building relationships, learning on subjects from everything from health to law. We've gotten resurrected on the law side because there's some like new good stuff, not just that 99.99% crap that came down the pikes at us during the pandemic and season to come. So I think that's all for today that I wanted to share with you, and so much love. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day, and we shall see you soon. Bye for now. I'm going to play us out, my son.